Hi, I'm so excited to talk to Carole today. So today for this interview, we have Carole Gridley. So she's a friend of mine and I know her for years and we work together at different events, ex-practitioner at business entrepreneurs. But we also bump into each other at different learning events because I think both of us love learning and we're both big fans of aromatherapy. And of course, Carole, she is a qualified aromatherapist and she has her own business called Health Touch, and which is about massage therapy. And she also have a really cool business. Since 2016, Carole, you've been doing your personalized perfume, natural perfume, cologne. And I have actually one of her perfume for birth, which is amazing. So we're going to talk a little bit more about it, but that's Carole. And you also taught at Tate School's aromatherapy. So you're definitely a, all-round aromatherapist.
Yeah.
But so today I'm very interested to talk to you because before we came on, we spoke about, what we have done in our life. And I think it will be really great to talk about Carole's actually previous incarnation where, you had a journalist background and you work in advertising and marketing and PR and all of that. And before you came to aromatherapy. So we're going to listen to Carole more about it, but I think it really fits the topic for today, which is about, sometimes we change our career. Sometimes we feel the inner calling and we don't like what we're doing, or we think it's time to begin something new. So today we talk about how to find your passion and purpose. And sometimes that could be a career change, but sometimes it's, even if you're staying in the same job, but you may find your passion on the side as well. So I cannot think about a better person to interview to talk about this particular topic. So welcome, Carole.
Thank you, Sze Wing. It's lovely to be here.
So as I already spoke a little bit about your background, so tell us a little bit about your journey. Like, I noticed as a young woman you travel, but you have a journalist background. So what caused your career change? What happened? Like, tell us what triggered your change.
I won't go into too much detail about that. I think in our lives there are probably signposts where at some point we might have had a bit of a glimpse of what our passion was and maybe just then ignored it for various reasons. I won't go into that in too many details, but I did this journalism training, which in New Zealand was a 1-year course, but also quite practical. I was very young, actually. I was one of the youngest in the class. So I decided that I didn't want to continue with journalism because I didn't think I would be able to interview someone, for example, who'd lost a child or who had lost their home in a fire or something like that. I didn't have that kind of, I think I would have been in tears myself. So you have to have a really sort of fairly hard head of the story is the main thing. So I did make that decision. However, it did seem though that I'm very much in the communications industries. And when I was young in my 20s, it was really cool to be in things like marketing and advertising. I don't think that's quite the case now, but then it really was.
It's still really cool.
Okay, well, those were the cool jobs then. And so, of course, I wanted to be in there. So as it happened, I was born and bred and then trained in New Zealand, but then I left New Zealand at a very young age. We went to Greece, my girlfriend and I, my best friend, and we both ran out of money. And we both also fell in love with Greek boys. So we wanted to stay, but of course we had no money. So we got jobs. And so that really began by sort of default. I guess my career during my 20s was very much in those communications industries. So PR, marketing, advertising, tourism, promotion, and so on. And it was all really, I really am not a goal setter. I never really, God knows where I would have been if I'd actually done that. But I just flowed into things really. And I was being a typical 20-year-old, you're just out there playing and, doing all those things. Work wasn't all that important to me. So it was really when I became around my 30s that I figured I really needed to get my act together a bit more. And it was then I somehow got into event management, which of course in a way is another kind of communication. So I spent the next decade helping to run, or actually running really, the most, probably at that time, the largest business conferences around Australia. So there's a lot of travel. It was actually very exciting. I was meeting, very top level executives, some politicians, not just in Australia, but also from overseas, staying in 5-star hotels, sometimes flying, first class, living a kind of quite a good life. But oh my God, it was so stressful. it was just, my whole life was taken over by it, really. I didn't really have a life. And it was about that time that I read about this thing called aromatherapy, which no one knew about at the time, and I knew nothing about it. I kind of imagined I would be sitting in a sauna or something with, sprayed by perfume or something like that. But little by little, I found out that there was, in fact, a course. There was a diploma course, which, as it happened, also included doing massage. And so not only did I love this aromatherapy thing, but also I loved massage. So there was these sort of two passions that came out of that.
Hmm.
So
well,
do you want me?
Yeah, no, so a couple of things I think may be interesting for the audience, reader, or viewer or listener, reader. So you're running a really stressful job, right? So, and that time to take a course and do something else is extra stress. So there must be something inside of you that call for something quite different. And
yes, I think yeah, so there was actually. So I knew, I was never really good at the whole corporate thing. I never really fitted in. I was a bit too much of a rebel, and I was never good at the 9-to-5 thing. It was the whole environment was not really good for me. But even though, as I said, some of it was quite fun and exciting and challenging and so on. I always did have this interest in natural products of some sort. I looked at naturopathy, for example, but that didn't really appeal to me too much. And there was just something about aromatherapy which just resonated. And as I said, it was a time when no one knew anything about it at all. There was hardly any information. And the more I got into it, the more I just loved it. It was as if I really had found the thing that was me. And massage was sort of secondary to that as well. Sorry, go on.
No, I mean, it's like almost sometimes we humans plan as much as we like, but there are certain things that just happen in life that you have no control of. And then when opportunity comes, I mean, you obviously were quite aware that you were in a stressful life and you probably maybe wanted a change, and you were maybe having, sometimes we like when you were 20, you probably wouldn't think about all this stuff. But as a woman, when we age, when different life experiences come along, we suddenly become ready for something. And then when opportunity arrives, even though there isn't so much to go on with, because as you said, many people know about aromatherapy, there is this inner knowing that that's where you want to go. So how does the transition happen? I mean, from having a high flyer job to doing someone nobody knows. I mean,
well, again, you see, this is interesting, and I get a lot of people asking me this because I have quite a few clients going through this. It seems to happen on average around about this kind of age thing, sort of probably late
30 something.
And I put that down a little bit too. I suppose we all think we're really young and everything's going to happen in the future. And something about, maybe not for everyone, but something about turning 40 is a little bit of a reality check, saying, well, actually, maybe I'm not so young, and maybe now I should start, really getting into something else. I always encourage people to try and do that, because it's how awful to be miserable for another, or even just not very happy or fulfilled for another, like maybe 30 years. So with me, though, I'm a little bit different. As I said, I'm not a goal setter. So I just flowed. And I am really in the flow. There's no doubt about that. So I left my job. I resigned my job. I went to another job, which turned out to be totally horrible. But that spurred me on, really. So I finished my diploma because I hadn't been able to do that. And that was actually another year's worth, because they'd sort of, upped a lot of the subjects and things. And when I did, it was like, okay, so what am I doing now? At that point, my husband and I had a company which I'd hired my services out in admin, and I was in a position where I could not work. People might say my husband supported me. Well, we had to have a dual income. But at the same time, I'm not really money oriented, so I was okay about reducing my salary as long as I had enough to cover expenses, basic expenses. Now, this is a little bit of the story. I had this thing in my mind that I wanted to be in McMahon's Point, which is, as you know, a harbourside suburb in Sydney, which I love. And I just wanted to work there. But how? What was I going to do? Naturally nothing. I just waited. And there was this little ad in a newspaper for a particular job, a part-time job. And I knew nothing about what this was. I mean, the only thing that I knew was that it didn't involve typing, and I knew I could type. It was the first time in my life I've actually applied for a job that I didn't know what it was. But I applied for it because it was in McMahon's Point. And when I went there, it was in a terrace house, and the woman who had the business that she was interviewing me for, we obviously got talking, and I told her that I wanted a part-time job to support my new business I was going to do, my massage business and so on. And she happened to love massage. she also happened to be, as an entrepreneur, like to support people. And she said to me, well, I've got a couple of rooms I could rent out to you. Would you be interested? So there you go. I went for some sort of admin job. I didn't know what it was exactly. I ended up in a place in McMahon's Point where I was offered, 2 rooms that I could rent at a very low rent, I must say. Not an ideal situation, but a very good situation to start off with. And I have to say that things literally flowed from there. So this part-time job, I was told it's actually quite low money, but I may not even be able to hire you all the time. It was involving television scripts and things, so up and down, etc. Well, for the next almost 10 years, I was never without work from that particular job. And that job was for me the steady income, because I knew I couldn't just go and open up a massage business with nothing coming in. And I think many of us do know that it does take time. And even when you are quite successful, it's quite a volatile business. You're not always necessarily going to be busy constantly. So that happened. And then from then, all sorts of opportunities happened. So I got another contract job for a spa in Mossman, spa centre, doing massage, and that was fantastic. Became very, very busy. And I pretty much got a following in Mossman and so on. And then there were sort of other jobs that came along. And it would be almost as if I would be going on thinking, I think I just need another job at the moment to get a little bit of extra income. The next thing I'd get a call from someone saying, oh, I hear you do editing or proofing or whatever, I've got this job for you. So it literally flowed. And I never really, and I'm not advocating this, I'm not saying this was a good thing to do, I just never sat down and wrote anything down or did goal setting or any of that. It all just flowed. And I was a beautiful space for that almost 10 years.
I think there's a few things for a lot of people to learn from here. So let me dissect it a little bit, because I think there's a lot of good stuff here. So first of all, there's one of the things I noticed from a lot of people, especially younger generation. It can be a problem. It may be an advantage. It really depends. That there is this attitude of, I'm going to go out there and make it happen. And I think you need to, of course, take action. If you sit at home all day, it doesn't matter you find your passion. Nothing will pop if you just sit at home.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I think there's a fine line between, taking inspired action versus you force yourself to do something. There is a lot of, I'm going to go out there and make it happen. I'm just going to do it. Exactly. This is very white sugar to me, like a quick energy burst. But then you will forget about why you're doing all this. Where's my integrity going to like? What is really the reason people lose focus sometimes when they're just pushing, get it done. So I think that's a real important to balance both. You go and take action versus not taking action. I'm not saying not taking action, but you gotta be aligned with yourself. So you, on the other hand, say you never make goals and just follow the flow. But on the other hand, the listeners will hear that, you're following your inner guidance. You want to do this, you want to do that. And it's like you go out there and take a job. You were flying first class in one job before, and then you're taking a little part-time admin. So there is a, change of circumstance, but that doesn't, affect you in a way that, that's below me. You just go on to do your thing because you are aligned inside, because you're what you want, what you desire are aligned. In that case, everything just flow easily. And then a lot of times, I don't know, I can't say for everyone, but I think the younger generation have this feeling of things have to happen a certain way. And so if it doesn't follow the expectation, they're going to go out and make it happen. But then again, it doesn't really hit that point, because following the inner guidance is probably the step one. To be really truly who you are, knowing who you are is step one. Then step two, you take inspired action, not go out there and just take action. There's so many 10-step program and, all this coaching stuff going on as well. But you can't just blindly take the steps. And for someone like you who really follow your inner guidance and do the action part, things just flow one thing to another. And I just love it. And the other thing I want to say is how life has a plan, because you started off in journalism, so which give you probably really good training in terms of writing skills, communication skill, which leads you to the second job. And then, when you come on to doing something else, there's a lot of skill and experience, or even like financial resources that you build up or expertise you build up, that it doesn't seem to be necessarily, relevant in the first sight, but they're always relevant. It's just that it sometimes they dig deeper to actually get there. So I think it was fascinating how you get to that point, like where, you know, suddenly you really, I mean, for most people, career change is not like overnight. You quit today and tomorrow you start a business, and then the third day you'll be successful. There is a steady growth, and many people will take on part-time job to support themselves because, you know, that's just a realistic way of going about it and responsible way to go on about it. But also, there's so much to learn when you're a newbie. So when you first started as aromatherapist, there's still, even though you're qualified from a provider or institution, there's still so much to learn on a job, and that become much more steady growth than, you know, people who quit and just decided to jump into something and, you know, expect the success that come tomorrow.
Exactly, that's right. And can I also say that some of the things you were saying, in other words, what you've done before actually can lead into what you're doing. So, for example, you know, the journo training taught me how to write well, and also how to communicate well, and also to talk to and listen to people's stories, because, you know, you're doing a lot of interviewing, things as you're doing now, for example. The actual corporate job, particularly with the, you know, the meetings management, I was running, you know, multi-million-dollar budgets. So I learned financial management from that. I was also, as I mentioned, dealing with very top-level executives. So when I worked in Mossman in particular, those were my clients, and I could talk their language. You know, I knew what they were going through, and I could talk all sorts of things. I could talk executive speak, which, you know, if I had just come out of school and become a massage therapist, I have to say that wouldn't be thought. It's not to say that people wouldn't be able to do that. It's just to say that wouldn't have been experience I'd have had. And a lot of things that people fall down in small business, one of the biggest ones is financial management. So I was able to very much, I'm certainly not got accounting skills or bookkeeping skills, but general budgeting, general management, you know, not spending beyond your income, things like that, which is often also something people fall down a bit in. Those were really valuable skills that I'd learned through, you know, working for not-for-profit organizations and managing tight budgets. So although I certainly wasn't, my income was definitely nowhere near the million. But you know, you take it down to a small level, you still have a budget. You've got income, you've got outgoings and things like that. So all of that experience still led to not so much the actual aromatherapy or the actual massage part of it, but the actual business running of it. And also, of course, too,
no,
sorry. I think we you know, we do have this idea that you've got to be very aggressive, that you've got to be very, you know, that, and also that to be a success, you've got to be making millions. And I consider myself very successful in that business, not because I was making millions, but because I was doing what I loved. Mostly, any of the other things were supporting that, and they were quite enjoyable in themselves. I had, you know, I was sometimes working over a 7-day week, but it wasn't the terrible stress. There were times when I could take, you know, several hours off during the day and enjoy the sunshine or have lunch with someone, and I could maybe work at night, you know. So it was a flexibility that for me was wonderful. It was a much better way to work.
Yeah, I mean, I love what you just said. And first of all, success means very different things to different people. And, you know, doing something that you enjoy, and you also see how your clients benefit from your work, it brings you meaning. That's like $1 million in itself.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
So people, I think sometimes before we jump into becoming entrepreneurial or quitting the day job, I think one of the things people should really think about is that what does success mean to you? Like for some people, it may be really making $1 million. That equals success. Nothing else matters as much. Then maybe, you know, being an entrepreneur will be a very different strategic plan for that. But I think if some people say, if I can do meaningful work and I can still sustain my mortgage, I mean, I don't have to be luxurious, but I can make a living out of what I love and actually reduce some hours. That is very successful for some people because that's the lifestyle they choose. It's about really knowing what you want, and that really works for you. I think that makes a huge difference. I mean, we can't just model people what their definition of success is and then try and impose it on us, because we can't be happy.
No, that's exactly right. And we have to realize we're all different. And as you say, if someone sits down and says, I really want to make, you know, millions of dollars, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that if it's a reasonably realistic goal and they then begin to work towards it, not just sit there, as you say, and wait for it. But not all of us actually do. I think I read something that people's level of happiness probably is around about 70,000. Now, I think I don't know if they can really put a point, but I think
exactly.
Is mostly, can I pay for a roof over my head? Can I pay for food? Can I support my children? maybe I can have a few nice other things, a few little luxuries like travel, etc., etc. That's normally people's sort of level of happiness. It's not, that we necessarily have to have millions of dollars to be happy and feel successful. So we have to
Yeah.
look at, we have to really sit down and say, what is it I want? What would make me feel successful? What is it I want, and how obviously can I do that?
Yeah. And another thing I wanted to touch on was, I heard this saying about youth is wasting on the young. And and I think I like the way I interpreted my perspective. It's sometimes that, at some point in our youth, when we're young, we think, oh gosh, looking back, I'm wasted all my time and I'm doing something, I make mistake.
Sorry. Okay, go on.
Don't worry, I will edit that out.
Yes, we will.
So I like this saying about youth is wasted on the young. And I can relate to that, because sometimes I think looking back, there were periods that I thought, oh my God, wasted my time. I didn't do the things right, blah, blah, blah. And then when I get actually a little bit really older, then I realized that none of them were wasted, because the experiences we accumulate, the personality that we mature, and the people we met, those things accumulate. It's never so clear-cut transactional. Sometimes relationship need time to build. You need to grow and to mature. So the youth is only wasted on the young mind. So when you actually mature and grow, then you realize none of them were wasted. But if you're having an immature mind, then everything gets wasted, because you don't even know what happiness really means. So you don't even know how to chase the success, so to speak. So I think the universe is a way to help us to align with all the things to lead us to where we want to be and who we want to become, as long as we are open to listen.
Yeah.
And
And I know, I totally agree. And I think that I know for myself that any time I've made a head decision, like this is what I should do, it's never really worked. But at the same time, there's no doubt about it. There's fear involved with to trust. And certainly at that age, and it's only very recently that I ever really thought much about that in a conscious way, about trusting or the universe. I just did it. I just let it happen. But again, it was taking calculated risks as well. It wasn't just sitting around and waiting for it all to happen. Just that with me, I was just less perhaps as aggressive about it as, say, some other people would have been. But again, that comes back to understanding who we are as well, what kind of people we are, if that makes sense to you.
Totally. And so tell us a little bit more about what makes you to start being interested to create your personalized natural perfume about 2 years ago. So you've been in aromatherapy for a long time. You're a seasoned practitioner, and you taught as well. So, and tell us maybe a little bit more about the power and beauty of aromatherapy, because some people may be interested again to the field.
Sorry, just say that again. About the...
Maybe tell us a little bit about aromatherapy, the power and the beauty of it, and then what triggers you to make the perfumes.
Okay. Well, first of all, aromatherapy is probably a bit, I think everyone by now has heard that term. And unfortunately, it's been rather loosely used to have anything to do with essential oils or smells or whatever as aromatherapy. And that's not true. Aromatherapy is, in fact, it's about really the art and the science of using essential oils for therapeutic purposes. And we have to remember that these essential oils are very, very powerful. They don't necessarily, not everything natural is safe. Also, we're not always sure whether oils are particularly natural, and they may have been adulterated or something. So aromatherapy is really should be about actually properly learning how to use essential oils for therapeutic purposes, and that means taking a lot of considerations into practice, like the fact that we're all individuals. You cannot just say, well, lavender oil is going to do this and that for you. If you don't like the smell of it, if you for some reason get affected badly by it, it's not going to help you. So I get annoyed, as do many of us who are probably professionally trained, where you see all these rather lightweight kind of articles or advice being given. In fact, some of that advice is actually getting quite serious about the misuse of essential oils, and people who are telling other people what to do, and they themselves are not properly qualified. So it is actually first of all, I will say it's a nationally recognised qualification in Australia, and it generally, I think there are a bit of changes here, and I don't know a great deal about that the way its training is now, but certainly it is not something that you just do a little course and that's it. You can go off and tell people how to use essential oils. One of the main things about it is, as I've just mentioned, it's personally prescriptive. So anyone working as an aromatherapist and using essential oils in their massages or as treatments or whatever, you do a full consultation with an individual. You find out their medical background, you find out what their likes and dislikes and so on. So when you prepare essential oils or use them for them or make something up for them, you're doing this specifically for that person. So I do want to I'm a bit about passion about, as many of us who are trained are, about not misusing these beautiful substances. Now, how I came to perfume was that I guess I was literally in my bliss if I mixed up any essential oils. And I just began to think more about natural perfumes, and coming from the perspective of aromatherapy where you make personalized perfumes. I still don't. I don't want to make a range of perfumes that I sell, and there are people who do that, and that's lovely. But I want to make them actually personalized. And the other thing was, I felt that because of that, there's actually a thing where essential oils supposedly have the highest vibration of any natural substance. And so by using something that has a very high vibration, it's as if we can help our own vibration to rise up. Now, some of your people might think, well, it's all very woo-woo.
It's not. It's actually really not, because, one of the things we mentioned very early on is that we sometimes bump into each other in learning events, even though I'm not aromatherapist, but I love aromatherapy. And then, there's a lot of science behind aromatherapy now. There's a lot of evidence behind it. Right. And it's not a woo-woo thing. It is vibrational medicine, so to speak. Yes. But obviously it's not a mainstream thing where you go to a doctor and they give you lavender. That's not the structure or the process in Australia. But although I find it very effective for personal issues, both physical, like catching a cold or blocked nose, but also emotional when I'm feeling stuck or whatever. So there's so many levels. So first of all, I did wanted to mention, I do see it as a vibrational medicine. Yeah. And I love your take on, this is something that smells so great and has so many benefits. And why can't we combine something like, sometimes people think, let's say, for example, makeup is just to look good, but also makeup is supposed to be good for your skin now. The same with, perfume. Why can't we have something that's good for your body, your mind, and your soul, while it also smells nice as a physical feature? So you carry on with a personalized perfume.
Yeah, so that's the thing. So obviously we're using natural products, which is, again, if used safely, are a lot better for us, because almost all commercial perfume is actually synthetically produced. And that has its benefits, obviously, because, you get a particular smell and it's always going to be the same smell, and it does last longer, and it's easy and it's accessible and so on. There's never been a time in history where perfume was so accessible. So in a way, we're really going backwards a bit into the way perfume used to be, which was using totally natural substances that generally were created for individuals then, because, of course, it was only individuals who could afford them. It wasn't like the masses who could afford to use perfumes. But this is there's just something, and I know that when I talk to people about this, their eyes light up about the idea of something personalized, something for them. And I began doing this. Well, first of all, I did a course on making perfume, which was an international course. It was actually, as it happened, it was held in Wellington, New Zealand, my hometown, so that was very convenient. And subsequently, I have just practiced, and I keep doing more courses, and I keep doing more learning, because it's an ongoing where I am now as opposed to where I was 2 years ago is so completely different. The other thing is that we are recognizing now, and this is only fairly recent, that how profoundly smell and scents and aromas affect us. And we can tap into this. There is such a thing called, for example, scent branding, which I don't know much about, because I don't see that as necessarily could be natural scent, but certainly there's ways where you can tap into memory by using aromas. So what I do encourage is that when I've made someone a perfume or a spray or whatever, is that they use that perhaps in some kind of ritual to help with their manifestation, to help with their meditation. And this does not have to be some intensively long, highly religious dramatic thing. I mean, it's as much as taking perhaps a minute in the morning to slowly apply your perfume, to inhale it and just think about, I'm having a lovely day today, or something like that. It can be very simple. I don't want to take up too much of your time by going into this. I do a whole presentation on this actually, but we haven't got the time to go into it in such detail. But it's just a really lovely way of having something that's very special for you. And we live in a, as we know, we ring up people and we talk to voicemail. We don't really have a lot of personalized stuff happening these days. So it's just something to really take us back to the very, what I call the essence of ourselves, I think. You know, what is particularly lovely for you to smell and just makes you feel good, if nothing more, it just makes you feel good. And something that I think really will lift your vibration. I think it will lift you in some way. It may not be.
I love the concept. And when you were talking about, you know, how people's eye light up when you talk about creating personal perfume, that is something I have always thought, that these days with social media, with technology, we are connected to people almost instantly, but at the same time we aren't connected, as in it felt there's so much distance in between. Like, yes, our thoughts and mind, maybe we're communicating, but because there's so much information going on, a lot of times I do find that there's a lot of things that is too transactional in the nature. Like, so what is this meeting about? What is our outcome that we want? What is the agenda? Are you going to help me? What am I getting out of this? What are you getting out of it? We're not getting out of it. We're not doing it. Like, there's a lot of that. And to just feel, instead of so transactional that I pay this dollar, I get that perfume, and it's just bang, bang, bang like this, to have actually think about someone, think about you, your personality, your current situation, your needs, your problems, your happiness, your sadness, and create something specifically for you. That being thought of, and to have the actually connection between the perfumer yourself and the client, but as well as for the client to connect to her soul. Because imagine if you are so transactional every day, you may lose track of who you are too. It's so easy for us to just keep on going to our to-do list and go to work, go home, do the chores, instead of really reflecting. It just takes a moment to inhale, but it also takes a moment to just come back to our body as well. So I think it's a very like exciting concept for people. So maybe tell us a little bit about your process of making these perfumes.
Well, the way that it's now is that they will either purchase it, or sometimes it's a gift voucher. But they have, I have a form which I ask people to fill in, and that's giving a bit of their medical history, also their emotional state at the time, and you know, whether that's quite, for example, if someone says they're a bit anxious, are they a bit anxious, or is it really, you know, quite severe clinical anxiety? One thing I'm very conscious of is not making any sort of misleading comments or giving too many promises, because people can be very susceptible sometimes to things like that and very vulnerable, and I don't, you know, there's nothing that we can really promise with any of this. So they fill out the form, and then the other part, of course, is what kind of aromas do they like, what kind of aromas do they not like. And I sort of divide those in things, you know, like might be woody or citrusy or, you know, spicy or whatever. Now, in perfumery, there's a lot more categories, but I make it fairly simple because you really have to know more. I mean, if I say something like chypre or something, I mean, you know, is everyone going to understand what that is? So it's getting that general idea. I also ask them to give me some ideas of commercial perfumes that they like. And there are particular websites where you can look up those perfumes and get an idea of the notes, the key notes, and possible, not all of the ingredients, but some of the notes in those perfumes. So that gives me a bit of an idea. But I'm never going to actually create. If someone says they like, you know, Chanel or something, I'm not going to create that perfume. But it just gives me as much information as I can. And then we have a consultation. Now, if I don't know the person, I'd like to, if possible, have a face-to-face conversation, or sometimes it's a phone conversation. I've had obviously some people interstate and so on, or a lot of the time, of course, the people I do know, either they're my massage clients or their friends or family, so I get more of an idea of who they are. And then I make a sample, and I give people, I'm probably quite generous at the moment, I don't really charge a huge amount because I still consider I'm practicing a bit, but I give people up to 3 different samples to smell and see whether they like them. And I'm very pleased to say that the more I've done it, the better I'm getting at it. So I don't need to have to do, I normally can do the first sample or at least the second where they will really love it. And I'm looking for someone to love it. I don't just want, oh yeah, okay, I want their eyes to light up and say, oh, wow, something like that.
It's quite an art form what you're doing. It's like it's an art form that actually have benefit for body, mind, and spirit.
Exactly. I mean, even the best perfumers in the world are still learning. I mean, everyone's still learning, still practicing, and so on. So it is definitely an art. So you're bringing, you have to bring knowledge, like anything, but you have to bring your knowledge, but you also bring your own feelings about it and your own creativity to it, and you keep learning and you keep practicing. Another thing is that I'm very much into the Australian essential oils, because I think the plants that we have in Australia are hugely powerful. They're becoming more and more popular around the world in cosmetics and skincare and perfumes and so on. So it's bringing that into it too. But it's again, and so the best thing really is when you have someone say, for example, a recent client who's moving into energetic healing which is kind of a bit later in life. And I was very conscious of that when I made this perfume. And she literally says to me, when I wear this, and I have to wear it now all the time, I do feel my vibration is lifting. I feel something's lifting in me. So that's the kind of response that you want. Now, not everyone's going to look at it that way, but some of them will. I think some of the other instances were massage clients of mine who were going through a very hard time. And I made perfumes for a couple of them, and that it kind of changed their way of thinking. For example, one was looking for a job and not really getting much luck, and then she suddenly changed. Instead of going for the same kind of work she'd done previously, she looked for different work, and the next thing she was getting interviews. And now I'm not saying that was exactly what caused this, and that she had this perfume and magically she then got a job. I think something shifted in her there, because someone took the time to make something special for her. And secondly, she had this special thing, and she kind of put some intention into it.
It's fascinating, actually. I heard a lot about those stories before. And I think how fascinating that, the topic today, we are trying to talk about career change and finding your purpose and passion. And through your life story or mine, that how we keep changing, but we answer the call. And so we get to something that we find purposeful. But I mean, little did I know that when we talked about your perfume, it also talked about how energetically that the aromatherapy oils, that essential oils, also have that ability to lift us up energetically, and then somehow just help us to have a bit more clarity or courage. I don't know what happened, but energetically it happened. And so someone who are also looking for career change may find just the right things to say, or looking at job perspective differently, or she present herself differently. Like, as you said, there's just so many things could add up together. Like, maybe her way you present herself, or the way she feel about herself affect her presentation or her interview or whatever it is, or just the way how she go about job hunting and so forth. It's just incredible how it just magically enveloped all of you, and it is somehow helped in mysterious way.
That's right. I mean, I had another client, for example, who was sort of doing a bit of online dating and so on, and then she met someone that she thought she would really like, and she asked me to make a special perfume for her, and this person loves this perfume on her, because a lot of men really like it, because I think they like that more natural sort of smell rather than that rather sickly sweet. And so he absolutely adored this perfume. And well, I've ended up married, so
Wow! So isn't it incredible? You go out there, make it happen, and then all you need is actually a perfume. Okay, all jokes aside, I think life it's often have a mysterious way to surprise us. It's about keeping yourself head above water, conscious, listening to your inner guidance. They listened to the guidance and they felt, okay, I want to have this perfume made. I mean, it's not a very common mainstream thing like you go and buy bread and butter every week, isn't it? Like, it is a conscious decision, but it's a decision that reflects that you're looking at your well-being in a different magnitude. So I guess it also helps. So that leads to one of my sort of wrapping up question is, now you're doing what you do, and I know you love what you do. So what is the thing you love the most about your current job, or things that you're living and breathing with? Like, what do you love the most now, where you are?
Okay, so at the moment I'm very, because of certain personal changes in my life, I'm now doing this work full time. That may not last, but at the moment I'm doing my massage and I'm doing my perfumes. And as you know, I have another give back project as well, so a voluntary project that I'm working on. So that is the most wonderful thing at the moment. Look, I do love doing massage, and I've expanded that quite a lot to do other things. It's a very holistic approach that I take. I love making perfumes, and the best thing about that is the actual. I would honestly say that if I'm making a blend, I'm in bliss. I am literally bliss. Massage comes close to that, not quite as much, but there's certainly times when I've been doing massage over many years where I would say I'm now exactly in the right place I should be. And the same thing with making my perfume blends and so on. And I think whatever anybody chooses to do, that is the ideal, honestly. If you're sitting there saying, this is exactly where I'm meant to be, and I'm just absolutely, there's just nothing that is wrong with what I'm doing at the moment. And we know how many people hate their jobs. Yeah. Or just feel wrong or something. They may not hate it, but they just feel wrong. So I think that to me would be an aspiration, I suppose, that people could try and achieve. And just, yes, I think that's when they've achieved it.
It's actually amazing. And, to say that, I'm exactly where I should be, it's a really big statement. And you also mentioned something I wanted to ask you about, is that one of your passions is about equality and fairness, and that's why you created this Give Back project. So tell us a little bit more about what it is.
Equality and fairness generally, you mean?
No, your Give Back project.
Oh, my Give Back project. Yes, well, that was something I actually provide free massages for carers. Now, I'm talking really about unpaid carers so they might be looking after parents or a partner or a child or even a close friend sometimes who's perhaps managing a chronic condition or is undergoing cancer treatment or is going through rehab. The people who care for them, who do this incredibly with a lot of love, but you have to look at it from not only as the person having a horrible time, of course, who's actually going through the condition, but the personal people caring for them, their whole lives are geared around this person. So what I really aim to do is to give them just a little bit of time out. And I'll talk about the bigger picture of this. I really want to do, and I still do, but I've always wanted to do something really big, something really big to help people. I didn't have the money to do it, and I don't have the money to do it. And it's really looking around at some of the other people and thinking, well, okay, I may not be able to help thousands of people, but I can maybe help just a little few people. And I think this is something that if many of us can do this, I know not everyone can in some way, help just a few people. And I'm talking about not just from the business point of view, I'm talking about actually giving something, not just money, but just maybe some of their time or something. I think that is just, can you imagine how great the world would be, really? And this is why I start looking at that. So, in other words, doing this tiny little thing, if you kind of had everybody doing it, or most people doing some tiny little thing, it would become the bigger thing. So, again, I would perhaps urge people to, don't do something you don't want to. Don't do something and be a martyr. I love massage, and that's the thing. So, for me, giving someone a free massage is something I love to do. Plus, I'm meeting beautiful people. And so I enjoy doing. I don't do it on a big, I do it like within a manageable, one Sunday a month. That's kind of manageable time. So I know I won't let people down. But yes, that's really what I'm doing. And I'm very happy that one of my colleagues is actually also interested in doing it too. So that means that we've got more practitioners doing this. We can expand that a bit. So it becomes a little bit bigger.
I can't agree with you more. It's that, when we want to change the world, we actually have to start, first of all, us, within yourself, right. And then one person at a time. And then slowly by slowly, it will become a bigger project. Like, as you said, you attracted a colleague who want to participate the same, or maybe you inspire others that may do that kind of contribution. Give that time or whatever resources that's available to them, because for you the thing is massage, for someone else could be mentoring or cooking, I don't know, but just that having this giving back attitude, it's so helpful, because sometimes, as I mentioned before, we're craving for connection, and when people actually take the time to not just be nice to you, but just give you time and care, it's a really big deal. You can't buy that, really, like, in a way. And I think it's incredible, and so, and I'm sure people who benefit from those give back projects, who receive a massage, when they obviously are people caring for people who are ill and so forth, they get this treatment, they will somehow also change in a way, and they will affect others. So it's always like a ripple effect. And
Exactly.
we all have to start small, like one word at a time, one massage at a time, one book at a time, you know?
Yeah. No, that's true. And I think it's probably easier they can go home and somehow their rather hard time is perhaps a little easier. And the other thing I do, because I know people, I do know from experience, people aren't always comfortable with getting something for nothing. So I offer the opportunity for them to donate to my favorite charity. I don't pick a medical charity. I pick a charity called Youth Off the Street, which is about, looking after homeless young people. And I make the point they are absolutely under no obligation. It's not a fundraiser, but if they'd like to donate any little thing, like any coin or whatever, then they do. And of course, most of them do, because they're such lovely people. So there again, I think last year there was about $300 that I was able to give to Youth Off the Street. So it's like a circle thing. It's kind of, everyone helping somebody else.
Yeah, life
And that's
is,
how it should be. I know, not just everyone going out being a martyr or something, but or being, I'm a great person. It's just do your little thing, do it within your boundaries, your means, and then they will probably, as you say, they will perhaps go out and give back to someone else.
You can't calculate so much in life, and I think in my life experience, those who actually calculate everything usually just doesn't end up getting what they want. But those who are, follow the flow and just having integrity within themselves, they tend to come out okay.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah, and that's literally my last question for today. Sometimes I think about what would I say to my younger self. If I can speak to me when I was 20, what would I say? What would you tell your younger self looking back?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, there are probably some other things other paths I would have taken in life, but there's not a big regret. So I probably would have just said, look, don't worry, don't worry. It's all going to work out. Because I think there were times when I did fret and worry, and, not when I was very young, but certainly when you got a bit older. Yeah, so just don't worry, really. It's going to work out.
I heard people say worry is basically praying for the worst outcome.
Well, that's a good point. Yes, you're probably right. There's also what they in counselling, it's the most useless. It's absolutely one of the most useless emotions ever, is to worry. And one of the things often in counselling that you actually tell people is spend a set 10 minutes worrying. Don't worry before and don't worry after, but you can worry all you like in that 10 minutes, and it's quite effective.
But do people actually use that 10 minutes to worry, or they just kind of start to laugh it off and just don't bother with it at all?
Well, in terms of when they do that exercise?
Yeah, like say you give me 10 minutes to worry. I think immediately my reaction is that, I don't feel like worrying anymore right now.
That's probably what it is. They probably think, you actually have to put aside time to worry. It's like, well, why would I bother? So, yes, you probably just end up laughing and not worrying too much.
So it has been an absolute pleasure to talk to you today. And I think I hear lots about aromatherapy, about finding your direction in life, working in different industry, and that hopefully will help some people who may be in a crossroads situation looking for the next step, how to find more passion and purpose in their work. So before we go, tell us, how could people contact you if they're interested to get aromatherapy treatment or make a personalized natural perfume, which is lovely. Like, as I have one, I can vouch for that. So now tell us a little bit about how can people reach you, so they may be interested in finding more about aromatherapy, having a treatment, or getting a personalized perfume. So how can people find you?
I think the easiest thing, Sze Wing, is to go to my email address, which is Carole, Carole, H for Harry, T for Thomas, M for Mary, T for Thomas, @gmail.com. And don't forget the E on Carole.
And I will also put it on the show notes, and on the when if people are watching this, or so they can see a description. If they're listening to the podcast, I will try to put on the show notes as well. And if they forget. So anyway, it has been an absolute pleasure to talk to you today, and really delighted to share this time with you. And hopefully our listener or viewer think they have maybe get some information or inspiration they needed at where they are in life. And who knows, maybe they were going to be interested in getting some natural perfume, because when you were talking about it, I was like, oh wow, I really want to get one, and it's so amazing. So well, anyway, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Sze Wing. Thank you so much.